Hello, everybody, and welcome back again to another D4H live stream. I feel like I was just here. So, for those who don't know, my name is Billy. I'm the Emergency Management Solution Specialist here at D4H. And today we're going to be talking all about search and rescue. So, let's bring in our guest today, Gavin, and we'll get kicked right off with the introductions here. All right. Gavin, hello, sir. How's it going?
Pretty good. Yourself?
Pretty good. So let's just introduce everything from Response Search and Rescue. Tell us about who you are, a little bit about the agency, and we'll just pick it up from there.
Yeah, so I guess I'm Gavin. My official title with Respawn is Commander of Operations for Respawn Search and Rescue. We have, a chief, deputy chief, and then handful of commanders that sort of, recruitment, training, et cetera, that kind of specialize in some things. Respawn's been around for 45, 50 years, somewhere in that ballpark. Originally founded, there was a train derailment way back when in the city that I live in, and chlorine gas and some other things kind of spilled everywhere, and some like-minded citizens kind of banded together to help, and out of that came, Respawn Search and Rescue. And ever since then, we've been kind of helping our local community in one way or another, and it just kind of kept growing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I don't know if it went in ear one out the other. That's why I have a coffee. Based in Canada, correct? Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, we are just outside of Toronto in a city called Mississauga. So we're kind of one of the big suburbs of Toronto out in Canada.
Awesome. And we got some photos going on the slideshow here. So I guess, Gavin, tell me a little bit about, how did you get involved with search and rescue? Because I know that we were briefly chatting before. I used to serve in the fire department. I'm now a volunteer EMT. I feel like those kind of response roles don't just maybe happen or fall into place, maybe, if there's, any background.
Yeah. So, I guess it all kind of started because, I have a diverse set of hobbies and interests and all of that, where I've taken some training courses over the years, and I enjoy camping, the outdoors, and all of that. So I'm one of the weird ones in that, like, my day job has absolutely nothing to do with emergency response or anything like that. Really, we sell some related products, but that's just sort of a fluke. But I was looking for a way to kind of give back to my community, sort of, that be the change that you want to see in the world, kind of a thing. And I found that this was maybe a good fit because, yeah, like I said, I like being outdoors. I understood land navigation and survival and all of that stuff. So kind of just hopped on the internet and Googled local search and rescue groups and found one that was in my city. So it worked out really well.
Yeah, I would say, well, I joined mostly for family reasons. I'd say, like, I grew up in a firehouse, but I feel like at some point, given like Boy Scouts or whatnot, I would have been like, what more can I do with this background of hiking and backpacking in and living in the rain in a tent for a few days,
Well, yeah.
But and so fully volunteer, which is really exciting for me because I don't think I've had a live stream yet where I've talked to a fellow volunteer, which is really great because it is a very, very selfless profession for sure, in terms of committing your time outside of your day job to actually help people. And so I do want to, briefly expand a little bit more on that opening story. So you said how the founding of the Respond Search and Rescue came from a train derailment chemical issue. Today, what kind of call outs do you all get? What kind of, how do you, like, are you all, are you sitting at like a headquarters, and then, like, what kind of calls do you frequently
get? So
we
are, in theory anyways, officially on call 24 hours a day, and we have gotten some calls at weird hours. As the area that we live in has sort of grown up and turned more and more into its own city, that the search and rescue callouts, at least in our area, are fewer because our local police department handles that, although we do work with them and we're trying to get closer with them. But just the way they've set up search and rescue in the province that we're in, and it defaults to the police and all of that. So it's a bit of a political thing, even though it shouldn't be. But yeah, but we do partner with some other organizations that do the same thing that we do. They're volunteers in other sort of more rural areas that have a lot less resources. So when we do get call-outs, it's usually assisting them, and it will be anywhere from, you know, a rescue to a recovery to evidence searches to anything and everything all over the place. And then more locally is more just organized events that we know of well in advance, where we go and provide on-site medical assistance for things, or crowd control, and, you know, logistics in terms of event planning and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I mean, quite aptly as well, event planning is really the peak right now with the 4th of July fireworks and all the parades and all the different events. I don't know if it's the exact same. I know in Canada, I mean, I don't know if you have the same events in Canada, but you know, I feel like event planning is always like a constant in major cities, especially like Toronto.
Yep.
I wanted to briefly point out in our chat here today. So Colin, thanks for the comment. Looks like, I don't know if Gavin, you recognize Colin or
I do. Colin headed up one of the organizations that we would go and help do call outs for. So yes, I know Colin well.
Awesome. Sweet. And then of course, anybody else in the chat, if you have questions at all or have any comments, please drop them in the chat. We have Katie on the back end today, so we're going to be keeping an eye on all those questions and comments. So Gavin, I want to dive into a little bit more of, I guess, context in terms of the call outs,
Yep.
right? So, I mean, you talked about the different examples that you have. Maybe you could think of one that happened, I don't know, in the past week, or maybe you have an event planned down the line. If you want to talk about maybe one event or maybe two that you feel like, you know, just kind of talks about the full capacity and the experience of being with Response Search and Rescue.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can kind of break it down into the two things. I guess we do have a major event coming up. So we don't do the 4th of July, but we do Canada Day, which is July 1st. So that is our organization's biggest event of the year. So,
gotcha.
You know, I think 20,000 people or something like that come through the area where we are over the course of the day. So a lot of people. And yeah, I mean, we kind of have to partner with some different sort of groups in the area as we do this, because I mean, that's a lot. So yeah, the photo that's showing right now is from one of our Canada celebrations. So very busy event, all day event. We do everything from manning road closures to crowd control to, you know, missing kids, to all of it. If anyone gets hurt, last year we had an incident where you know, one of our people was sort of roaming about and came upon an unresponsive person, and they had to deal with that. Unfortunately, sometimes the kids get into a little bit of trouble and maybe imbibe a little bit too much alcohol. And so there's dealing with all of that and just, you know, the weather conditions and everything. But yeah, planning for that event starts, you know, a couple of months in advance to make sure that we've got enough people out, we've got the right road closures. So
yeah, absolutely. And before I jump into that whole planning aspect, I see Chi left a comment in the chat as well. Gavin, looks like you got some fans on the call today.
Yeah, we call to all of our members and friends and family. So thank you for all of the support. Yes, Chi's one of our newer members, and he's been fantastic. He kind of, much like myself, kind of is doing it to give back, and has sort of just dived straight in and really doing well. So.
Amazing. Maybe we'll have
absolutely.
So as I get into more about the D4H stuff, because I do want to talk about, you know, of course, I mean, obviously we're here for the software, but also, you know, I like talking about the experience. So let's start here with the planning. So you say it takes a few months to plan, and you can even tie this into any other experience besides just event planning. But so what were you guys doing before you found D4H or got implemented with D4H? Because it was 2017 that you guys signed with the software. So it's been a few years.
Yeah, I mean, we have been using it as far as I have been with the organization, so I don't know anything else. But it certainly does come in handy. I mean, being able to go in and, you know, because some of our stuff, like we had an event the other day, unfortunately I wasn't at it, but it was a small one where they needed to have medical people on site. So I can go through the rosters and make sure that the people that have volunteered and signed up for it have the appropriate credentials and things like that. so that we're not just sending somebody in that doesn't have the right thing when, yeah, this has been requested. So very handy for doing all that. And just, I mean, we start planning events, training events and everything weeks, months, I mean, sometimes almost even a year out in advance. So even just being able to track all of the events that we have coming up is great. I mean, and then the ability to sync them to my personal calendar is also really handy, because I mean, I'm a fairly busy person. I find that when people that volunteer usually volunteer for lots of things, it's just kind of in our nature. And just that simple little thing has been huge for me, is just being able to put that into my calendar, which then syncs with, you know, the appropriate people in my life's calendar, so they know if I'm going to be busy in that.
Oh, no, I completely understand. I can't usually deal more. I struggle with just my personal Apple calendar and then my work calendar, just two like if I had more, I don't think it would actually be possible. I did. So I got a question, or not really a question here, but so Danica in the chat, and I'm so sorry if I'm not pronouncing these names properly. So you already kind of addressed this a little bit, Gavin, but I kind of want to dig more into the personnel and training software. So, you know, she asks, you know, with unresponsive people and having your personnel being qualified and up to date and certified. So if you want to talk about kind of the different qualifications you track, if you track any expiry dates, any renewals, you know, kind of what's that workflow that you use in our personnel and training?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, we use D4H to manage all of that, which is great, because like most of the credentials and everything are in the little drop down menu. But if it's not, you can add the things, because I have some unique ones that aren't necessarily in there that I've added, but then same with some other members. But yes, at a minimum, all of our members are standard first aid and CPR and stop the bleed. So that is a bare minimum to participate. But then we have other members that are, you know, police, fire, EMS, and all of those things that are trained to a higher standard. So depending on the size of the event and everything, we try to make sure that we've got, you know, people with sort of the higher levels of training. And some of our guys were actually just out redoing their EMR first responder training. So yeah, they're definitely there. And yeah, having that all in the system to track, to make sure that expiry dates and all of that, because yeah, the liability piece in our current world is definitely there and needs to be addressed. So
you don't say. Actually, I purchased my own EMT insurance, actually, just in case I ever needed that extra like support in case anything went wrong.
So it's sad, but yes, it is an important piece. Yeah.
And so before I jump to my next question here, so I know Katie's been cycling through some of the photos here. I don't know, is there any specific story behind any of these photos? Because I saw like one like in the middle of like a CPR exercise, or I mean, maybe if you're wearing the neon jackets out on a call, you know, I feel like it might be an actual like event or maybe a training of some sort. I don't know if you want to address any of those photos before I continue.
Yeah, I mean, the one that's on the screen right now is just us, just doing the research on our CPR and practicing. I mean, we do try to meet fairly regularly, though we've been kind of busy the last little bit. But
yeah,
I mean, previously it was sort of monthly, just, you know, either getting people their certification that didn't have it or just practicing them, because it's one thing to go and do that cert, you know, once every 2-3 years, or depending on what it is, and other things to actually practice them. And then, you know, doing them like we're doing here in sort of a closed setting is one thing, but then we also sort of once a year try to do a big joint exercise with all of our sort of partner agencies and everything, where we do an outdoor sort of mock search that will also, you know, once you find them, they need medical. The photo that's actually on the screen right now was a joint thing that we did with one of our organizations, where the military actually contacted us and we were showing them how to do search and rescue for a big joint exercise that they do every year. So that was pretty fun to be on.
Nice. Yeah, and so and I do have a comment in the chat before I address the comment in the chat. And because it's relevant to the photos, you know, you've talked about interoperability a little bit and working with multi jurisdictions or multiple agencies. Have you ever, have they ever used D4H? How has D4H, maybe has it bolstered that interoperability at all? And if it's not relevant, let me know, but I just want to kind of see if there's any answer to that specific.
Yeah, so I mean, our group is on it. One of our partner organizations that Colin was with, OCEAP, is also on it. So I'm also on theirs, which is the kind of nice thing about the platform, is that if you are on multiple things, you can use your one email to flip between the different organizations. So we do some joint training and things like that. So it's handy for me to be able to flip over and make sure that like I'm seeing their training opportunities and I can pass them on to our group, and do things like that. So it's pretty handy having us all on that same platform, and learning how like we utilize it this way, they utilize it maybe slightly different, and we can chat and kind of teach each other all the little tips and tricks and how to better utilize it. So
yeah, of course, element here, because I have an unknown username in the chat, but it was the I believe he's part of your org, but there are members of the EMR certified, which is the highest level of civilian medical certification, which is, I mean, absolutely, that's just awesome.
Yeah.
That you have those people, with that foundation and that training. But I'm thinking about like my volunteer department, right? And we're talking about the perishability of skills, and we have a variety of different ages and experiences, and we use iPads for our PCRs, but then it's like some can't use an iPad. And so I'm just kind of curious, with all the different people in your org, or maybe the interoperability, how has been the general feedback of using such modern technology or experiencing D4H in the field, or trying to integrate it with that response pattern?
Yeah, I mean, it's been pretty good. Like, I mean, having the mobile app and stuff like that. I mean, different members, I mean, we use it more for resource management than anything else, and that includes the people and all of that. And we use it to track sort of member engagement. Like, we'll put an event in as a check-in monthly to ensure that the members are at least at the very checking in once a month, to make sure that they're keeping on top of what events are coming up and things like that. So it helps us do that stuff very easily, right? And
yeah, no, absolutely. And I should have probably opened up more with this, but so for those that have maybe seen me in a live stream previously, usually we talk about the incident management platform. There's been maybe a little bit of talk of some of our admin oriented software, but so Gavin, your agency uses primarily the admin oriented software, the equipment management, the incident reporting, the personnel and training, the team manager side of the shop. And so I guess, tying more into, your use of the software, and you even just said more so for a check-in, but I guess we can kind of tie it into comms and logistics. What are kind of your workflows when you're assigning equipment or tracking inventory, tracking equipment, and assigning that to different individuals, just to start there, and we'll see what that carries on to.
Yeah, I mean, this is where we could probably utilize it a little bit better to do some of that inventory management and things like that. But we do have certain pieces of equipment. So myself and some other people do have radios that are permanently issued to us. And so for things like that, we've got that in there. We can assign it to a person. We can make sure that it's there. We've got some AEDs and things like that as well that we can put in, the expiry dates and when to check and all of that, battery packs, and assign all of that stuff and make sure that it's the right person has the right thing, and we can stay on top of it. But that I would say is where I would like us to get better at using it is on that side of it. But I mean, because we're kind of a small volunteer organization, we don't have a whole lot really that needs to be managed, but we could manage that a lot better than we currently do. But
I mean, there's always potential. I mean, I was going to say, even me too, for my ambulance corps, I'm trying to get that equipment management piece kind of situated. And I'm the one now stuck with the cataloging and the QR coding and like typing and everything. And I'm just like, man, I don't want to build this out. I mean, it's easy. It's just so much time, especially for a volunteer to go in and have to type all the different dates.
Well, and it's the setup, right? Like once it's set up, the maintenance part of it is easy. It's the initial setup, and so that's sort of where we need to get better at that. But
we
have the ability. We just need to start utilizing it better. I mean, I know we did it a while ago, and that's why there's some stuff that is in there. But then there was kind of a lull where some stuff maybe didn't put in there or updated properly. But
It's so funny you say that. This is kind of unrelated, but so I was going through a supply closet at the ambulance corps, and I was going through all the different like rubber gloves and like all the different items, and there were boxes that like expired like 2 years ago, and I was like, if we were tracking this, like, I mean, I don't know if gloves can really expire, but the point being is I was just like, this is before I was even living in the town. Like, this is pre-COVID kind of expiration dates. Like, and just to have something to like keep track of it, I feel like that would be ridiculously beneficial. Yeah, just the time. I relate to that. I really do. And so I guess I want to transition it back more towards the personnel and training a little bit. And I think we might have already briefly touched upon this, but since there have been some comments in the chat with the training and everything, so thinking about the qualification tracking with the personnel and training, what does it take to be a member of Respond Search and Rescue? What do you go through an interview process? You have to come with a certain background, and then is there any specific onboarding that you do with regard to training? Like, do you have like a probie period or something of that nature?
Yeah, no, we absolutely. So I mean, most of our sort of recruitment kind of just comes from going and being at events or word of mouth or people finding it, much like I did, where they're kind of looking to give back. We've done some of those, first responder career days at the local colleges that have that as well. So we do try to reach out and actively recruit people. And so interested people will fill out an application, submit an application that will go to our recruitment team. And so we have a commander and an FTO that kind of handle all of that, and we'll go over the applications. During COVID, there would be a phone call or a Zoom meeting as an interview. Now they'll go for a coffee and just kind of make sure that the person is the right fit and they're trying to do this for the right reasons. Not that there's really wrong reasons to give back, but like, we want to try to find someone that is willing to come out and actually spend time and volunteer. And there's definitely people that are looking to get into a career in first responders where they need some volunteer hours, and we're happy to be that organization and take the volunteers that we can get. But like there's a kind of like a minimum that we'd like to see people come out and do that. We're not necessarily looking for anyone from any particular walk of life. We're willing to take anyone and everyone, especially because we're volunteers. But yeah, it helps if you've got the right sort of attitude and mindset. And if you're lacking in the skill department, while it's always handy to get people that already have their standard first aid and all of that stuff, we have in-house trainers. So we can train at least to our minimum standard. And then because we have the associations with other partner organizations, to get that EMR level of certification, we can not do that internally yet, although we're working on it. We can partner with some of our other groups and be able to provide that training to our members, at least at a yearly kind of cadence, which is great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I was thinking about too with relating with my ambulance, even the fire department I used to work to as well. It's a very similar process. It's like you'll have an application, although I think like the ambulance corps has an electronic one, but then the fire department has like a paper one. So I don't know what they do for their members. And then you'll sit up at a meeting. You're like, we have this person, and we met with them, and they're not crazy. They seem actually decent. They have a pulse, and it's like, and then we'll vote, or they'll go through the new member orientation. Although I don't know if you have a similar thing in your search and rescue. I don't know what the standards are in Canada, but we did have a U18 program for the ambulance corps. The fire department, I think you're allowed to start. I mean, you can start, I think, as early as 15 or 16, but then you have to go through interior training to not be like an exterior firefighter, obviously, and then you can be like full-fledged fire. We're currently trying to reevaluate how to actually make that U18 program at the ambulance corps like a little bit more robust, because we've had these high schoolers or people who may come in. We maybe get like a good handful who are extremely passionate, but then we get some who are just there for the community hours. Do you ever struggle with retention or that kind of similar issue?
Absolutely. And it seems like this is not just your group or my, all volunteer ones are like that, where you get a core group that is there all the time.
Yeah.
And then there are some people that kind of come and go as they can, and then some people, I mean, they sign up and then unfortunately they don't really contribute a whole lot. But it's hard. I think that's just they have the best of intentions.
Of course.
Or I think maybe some people come into this thinking that it's going to be more exciting, a lot more, high speed, low drag, and you're off doing all this cool stuff like rappelling
Yeah.
off of buildings to try, and it's most of our activity is just standing around and making sure that other people have a good time.
Yeah. Oh, it's so interesting you say that too, because so I started my EMT journey in Washington, D.C., and I served in major urban centers all across the DMV and then also in New York City a little bit. And so then I was like, all right, cool. I can go to the suburbs and just kind of like chill out. Like I'll get a few like geriatric patients and just, do some like maybe the occasional car crash or something. And I have this brand new colleague at the ambulance corps, and he's an experienced EMT, but he wanted to get more experience. And so then he came to our ambulance corps, and I was like, are you sure? Like we might get like a few like fallen, older people, but I don't know if you're going to get like those like ODs or those CPRs or those like intense like calls or something. And it was so funny too the other night. I'm not going to speak too much about the call, but so he was on for a little bit, and then he signed off the shift. And then right as he signed off, and he wasn't going to respond, we got a 2-car crash. And then like I ended up checking the entire call, but I was like, oh man, like he missed like the one like good call that we would have had in that one stretch of time.
Yeah, we're very fortunate in that like most of our events are very boring.
So like right. Yeah.
And that's how I like it. I would rather stand there all day and not have to do something than have to, because that means that somebody is probably not having a good day. But if that's the case, then I am glad that I am there and that I can help out in any way that I can, because I would hope that if I was the one having the bad day, that somebody would be there to help me. So
well, it was so I'm totally going off on like a tangent here, but so there was this recent documentary on Netflix about the what was it, the Travis Scott concert or something, about that massive crush. Did you ever hear about that? It was like this massive crush MCI basically that was happening at this concert venue.
No.
So it was like, what?
No, I don't think I heard about that one.
Yeah. So I maybe it was in Texas or something. I forget what's. And so the way that this concert venue was designed, it was an outdoor festival. It was where you had all the people funneling into like one little square here, and then they'd have to go all the way around to go to like this other section. But everybody is just pushing into this one corner, and it's small. So now we have this small box with no movement, no space, and people just keep pressing and pressing and pressing, and they're creating like that like weird suffocation mosh pit where like no matter what, it's like quicksand. And I was just thinking about, because I did used to do festivals and sports events and everything, and I was like, man, if I were there, like holy, like that would be a little bit much to be pulling out all those people from the festival. And it just to your point of just like it's a good thing. Like it's fine to be boring and just kind of chill, but you don't want to see that much carnage.
We've done some, I mean, not massive concerts, but certainly done some concerts and festivals. We've done an air show one time. Oddly enough, the event that sees the most incidents or injuries, luckily they're always minor. So we have Remembrance Day, so like our Memorial Day in November. And the weather can be very strange. We've been doing the event, and sometimes it's well below freezing, and other times it's very hot. And so you either have the cadet program is out, and the cadet program will stand guard over the cenotaph there for the evening. So sometimes you get the kids that pass out, or some of the veterans that are much older will also have the same thing. That whole standing, at attention with your knees locked thing is not very good. And then you throw in either very cold weather or very hot weather on top of it, and you get a lot of people that sort of start passing out. So that is oddly enough the most incidents in an event, but luckily it's just they passed out and kind of smashed their face off the ground. And while not great, it's a minor incident and they're easily looked after.
Of course. It's also I have the exact story to share with that one.
Yeah.
We had our Memorial Day, ironically enough, right? So either like it's a nice, cool, overcast day, not below freezing, but it's moderate, or it's 90 plus. And I was with the fire department at the time, and we had those thick polyester suits, like wool suits with like the white gloves and the hats and everything. I don't know what I was thinking, but I was like, oh, I'll just like sip some water and skip breakfast before the like parade. And so I'm marching and we have to stand at attention in the sun. And I passed out. That was like the first time I ever passed out in like a parade. And I remember just like I caught myself, and like one of my friends, he was like, "Are you good?" I'm like, "No." Give me. And then I just cooled off and then finished a parade. But that's a real thing. I didn't smash my face in. I got lucky, but I was close.
Yeah, whoever set the precedent of first responders having either dark navy or black uniforms is not smart. Like
could have been reflective, could have been comfy,
Yeah.
could have been short sleeved, even. Like no, absolutely. Okay, let me try to get us back on track here. I don't even know where I was in my script. I think I want to talk a little bit next. I think lessons learned, because that's a really important thing with volunteers. I mean, you try to always implement change and try to improve things. Of course, there's always red tape and whatnot, bureaucracy, that whatever admins that you have and whatnot. But like even if you haven't used the incident reporting part of D4H software, what has it been like tracking change and lessons learned across your agency, or if there's any specific examples you can think of?
I mean, just it being like new qualifications coming out, and then like we used it to also sort of address some of the concerns that arose during COVID, and requirements of certain things,
Right.
and the ability to track that stuff to make sure that like, okay, if people are going to this particular event, they need to show this, and we need to know that those people have that thing. And just being able to keep track of it and manage all of that stuff has been handy. And just, I mean, the city also requires us to do some stuff. We've got to have our vulnerable sector checks and all of that, so like we can put all that stuff in there and make sure that we're keeping on top of it. And
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm curious about this part. So when you said new certifications, do your requirements change year in and year out, or is it just like more so like new people coming in?
Yeah, it's the new
and, like,
people
getting,
coming
like,
in, but also like because we're officially affiliated with the city, they have some training that they require us to do. And so every now and again that changes. Like there's they call it a customer service piece. Because I guess on their end it is customer service, but because we're affiliated, they kind of require us to do it. But it was dealing with kids with autism and other special needs and things like that. So important training in how to sort of address some of that stuff and do it in a considerate, professional manner. But like
Absolutely.
That's not generally a thing. It's not an official training, but it is because the city requires it in order for us to maintain our affiliation with them. So stuff like that, as they change their requirements, then sometimes we have to change ours as well. So it's this just happened. Who's done this? Who hasn't done this? Where were we at? And
that happens all the time, because granted, we haven't had like major significant changes to like our core like CMEs or whatever we have to do throughout the entirety. I mean, they did just extend the New York State certification to 4 years for an EMT, and I was like kind of luxurious, but also I'm a little bit nervous because like 4 years is a long time to hold a cert.
If you're active and doing it all day every day, then that's great. But if you're a volunteer that maybe doesn't use it for 4 years at all because you've just been very lucky, then that could be a little scary.
Yeah, we haven't had changes too. I mean, I guess it's more the innovation of training, because we also had a neurodiversity awareness training. It was kind of, we had actually service dogs and neurodiversity training, which is like they brought in golden retrievers. It was awesome. But it's so prevalent in today's community too, that like even if it's not required, it's also so important to be able to like be educated and speak to those types of issues and have to interact with those types of patients or individuals, because it's a whole other approach.
Absolutely, yeah. We've had some of that training where we've made it sort of mandatory on our end and said, look, this this is not traditional training, but because we're now more cognizant of just interacting with people like that and the potential we got to do this. We got to put this out to our members to make sure that, they're in the best position to be in to deal with that.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So I do have a few closing questions as we're coming to our last 10 minutes here. But I had Nick Kennedy just dropped a question in our chat here. So do you have a medical director? And if so, what is your scope of practice? If you want to speak a bit to the medical side of your agency.
We do not have a medical director. We do have a commander that is in charge of the training and that handles our internal education on it. So they handle training up to standard first aid. I do stop the bleed instruction. I'm working on getting the credentials to do the other things, but we're slowly working on both being able to deliver the EMR, first responder level of training, which is the highest that we can have as civilians to do that. But we do have EMTs that are active EMTs that do work with us as well. So, I mean, we will always defer to their expertise if and when needed. But yeah, fortunately for us, the medical side of it isn't massive, but yeah, we're always trying to up that.
Yeah. I was, so I just became Stop the Bleed instructor certified as well. So I got you there. I was trying to actually become a certified EMT instructor in New York State. It is so difficult in New York State to become an actual certified instructor. Like you can take the courses and understand how to teach and teach the content, but to get the actual credential to teach, it's like they don't want educators. It's like it's so difficult.
Thankfully, in this, we're pretty good, but I definitely feel your pain in other things that I deal with where it's like. Yeah. It's so easy to find the course, but like if I want to teach the course, why can't I?
You got to have a whole alphabet soup just to teach a certain course. Sweet. Well, thank you for the question, Nick. And so let's jump into some of our closing questions here, because I want to kind of bring it back around to the volunteer scope, to the search and rescue scope, because we do have a lot of great customers that are both as we say, professional paid. I mean, obviously volunteer is also professional in your trade, but it's just how we classify that. And how approachable the software is and how it really is, caterable to both groups. So I want to start first with your experience with search and rescue, and that where do you kind of see the search and rescue field kind of going over the next few years? Just to kind of give you some additional context, the way that I kind of present emergency management to a lot of our customers is that, it started back in 9/11 with counterterrorism and domestic threats. We then had a massive surge in the US and maybe even still today debatable active shooters and protection and security. And now it's all about the climate. Over the course of 25 years, we've now shifted all the way to the environmental side. And so if you could speak to that, any opinions?
Yeah, no, I would say that we certainly are seeing that. I mean, we've been fortunate in that some of the incidents that have happened in the US haven't really happened to the same magnitude in Canada, although that they have still happened. But there is still, because we're seeing it reflected in the news, there is definitely larger corporations and things like that are certainly, especially if they've got a head office in the US, a lot of those same initiatives come north of the border as well. So there is a drive for that. But I would say that, that's a pretty accurate sort of direction that things have been heading. The climate piece is a big piece now. I mean,
we were just talking about it with in November, it can be below freezing, or
we're seeing more and more wildfires and everything like that. I mean, we've got some going in Alberta right now. We had a massive ones that in Ontario, and if you're out in New York, you probably remember that our smoke was going over and clogging up things in New York, and they were complaining.
I couldn't play volleyball that night outdoors because of the amount of smoke and the amount of residual that came over to New York City at that time. So thank you for canceling my pickup game that I had.
Off to rest, But I mean, so things like that are absolutely the kinds of things that we could get called out for, because someone went out on a hike and now all of a sudden the forest fire starts, and
you got to search for them, got to help them out, maybe you can provide extra support. Like it's wide ranging. Absolutely. So for the next question, and I got Wayne Edward in the chat kind of kicking it off. I don't know if you know Mr. Wayne. Looks like he's been a part of your group for a while. Lots of changes for the better. I don't know if you want to give a quick shout out, Gavin, before I ask my next question.
Well, no, I definitely appreciate Wayne. He's and the crazy thing is that he's not even one of the members that's been there the longest. We have some members that are like original founding members that are still kicking around, although Wayne is definitely one of the older members there. But yeah, he's been a big help.
You know, I usually get in trouble for talking about age, so I'm not going to dive into that one because I know I'm like, man, I'm only 28, and then okay, so great. Chi also brought back another comment because I was going to ask you this. So I'll first ask the question. I'll tie in Chi's comment, then we'll get to you, Gavin. So the question is, plans to expand to D4H and add new capabilities. We're already talking about the equipment management, and if that's the same answer, that's the same answer. Chi, thank you so much for your testimonial. There is that D4H being extremely easy to navigate, having it on your phone in your pocket when you're in the field as a search and rescue professional, I'm sure is it's just awesome to have. So yeah, I'll let you talk to that, Gavin, if you have any additional plans apart from the equipment to kind of maybe bolster up.
I mean, that is definitely where we need to improve. So that's definitely the first priority, is do that, just because we need to be better on top of managing expiration dates and things like that. And we're currently sort of working on a grant in the background that will hopefully put some new stuff in that definitely needs to be managed if we get it. But yeah, just the versatility of the platform, being able to use it on my phone. Just, I'm busy, so it helps to be able to just pick up my phone, use the app, log in, and say, okay, what do I need to do? And like I said, yeah, it being able to integrate into my calendar, because I set that up. That is for me personally, is the biggest piece of it, so that I don't have to go and recreate things over and over and over again. It just, once I did it once, all of the events sync. I can see where I'm going, and then I can click back and forth between the things. And like, that is a massive time saver. And that to me makes it all just worth it right there. And then just being able to manage all the other stuff is very, very handy. And
yeah. And I would sit here all day and take compliments about the software, absolutely. But I'm gonna try to dig out maybe if you have any critiques. So 2 questions left. The first question: is there anything that you'd want to improve with D4H? Are there any features you're like, man, like I really wish that software has this, or I'm kind of struggling interacting with this? And if you can't think of anything, if not, we'll take our good graces and walk with them.
I have one. It's not even mine. It is a critique that Wayne actually has. And it's
okay. Yeah. Let's bring Wayne on. Actually, it
is a minor thing, but on the app, and I hope I'm explaining it properly, Wayne. When you're scrolling, it's got the past events first, and then the upcoming events. That's his critique.
Okay.
Hopefully, I've explained that. So he would like to be able to like have the the upcoming event right at the top,
relevant,
or like the current, like today's event kind of thing. But you got to scroll past all the past ones to get to that. That is a minor critique, but the only one that I can think of, and it's not even mine. So.
No, that's incredibly interesting too, because like I mean, I haven't really used the app. I use more the equipment management app than the personnel and training app. And it's great to see that different experience from customers, because like, on the web-based. Okay, interesting. So on the web-based platform, thank you for the peanut gallery there, Wayne. Appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, and Katie just flashed up the QR code. We have our online help center. We have a lot of YouTube videos as well. So if our product team is watching, maybe they will start to put that on their ticket list there. But no, I mean, I greatly appreciate, no matter how minor the improvement is, we're always open to feedback. So the last, the app being all good, thanks, Wayne. I appreciate that one. Is leave us a review on the App Store if you'd like. The last question I have, just to close out on a high note here, we have a wide variety of mixes, and quick pause. Hey Scott, how's it going from Monmouth? Thank you so much. Colin, thank you so much for the testimonial on D4H as well. Looping it back around for the last minute here so we can finish up on time. Given our wide variety base of different customers, what would you recommend, or what advice would you give to new search and rescue teams or other types of teams that are volunteer based who are thinking of using the software, maybe using about D4H? Any advice?
I mean, absolutely. Like, you're only as good as your sort of your organizational ability. Like, and being organized is huge, right? Like, we wouldn't be able to do what we do if we weren't organized. So D4H is an incredible tool for that. Like, we don't utilize it to its fullest, but we're trying to get better at it. But even at the scope that we do, it makes everything so much easier to just keep on top of it. So yeah, without it, I mean, if we had to do it on paper or we didn't have, we'd be sunk. Like there's no way we could do it. So
and getting flashbacks of like the what is it, the physical T cards with like the paper racks and everything, like trying to put all those in place or something. It's just, yeah, I'm a techie boy, so I got you on that piece. Great. Well, I mean, that's all I got, Gavin. I mean, that's a pretty good filled 45 minutes if you ask me. But Gavin, thank you so much again for joining us on the live stream today. Thank you so much to Katie on the back end for the orchestration and the support. Thank you so much for everybody in the chat and your interaction. It really helps us to have those conversations and those questions live time. If you have any additional questions whatsoever, we have our website. Gavin, is there anywhere that people can find you if they want to reach out to you or your exact address? But if you just want to say find me on social,
yeah, if you want, I mean, I can give you my Respond email. So it's 333@rsar.ca. You can reach me by email via there, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone's got. Or if you're local and you want to volunteer, we're always looking.
He's recruiting, actively recruiting. Yeah. Well, phenomenal. Thank you so much again, Gavin. Have a great rest of your evening and have a great rest of your summer. Thank you so much again for everything.
Yeah, thank you.
Right. Have a good one. Thank you all.